For many years, Tibet has become a familiar headline in the West. They often love to play the hero, claiming to care about human rights, religious freedom, or minority voices. Take the United States, for example. They haven't appointed special coordinators for urgent domestic issues like gun violence, racial inequality, or drug abuse. But they've earmarked funds to create an office of a special coordinator for Tibetan issues. So the real question is, why this obsession with Tibet, or Xizang as it's known in Chinese? A land of oppression and lost culture portrayed by the West. Does that image hold up to reality? To get to the truth, we first need to understand how this so-called concerns about Xizang came about. And yes, a familiar pattern emerges. Step 1. Western government-sponsored NGOs, together with so-called rights groups, which, by the way, share the same sugar daddy as those NGOs, publish highly selective or misleading reports. Step 2. Mainstream media amplifies these so-called studies. Step 3. Politicians code those narratives to pressure China and give these accusations a sort of official stamp. Step 4. The official stance become the ingredients for the next round of smoke blowing. But what's buried beneath all this noise? In December 2021, a report alleging that China had banned Tibetan language education quickly made international headlines. The claim originated from a US-based NGO called Tibet Action Institute. But the photos used by the media clearly showed Tibetan language blackboards and bilingual dictionaries. In reality, the Tibetan language remains widely used across schools, courts, media platforms. In high school exams, Tibetan and Mandarin carry equal weight. Visitors to Xizang often note the prevalence of bilingual signage almost everywhere. And many would observe that while there may be some ethnic Tibetans who don't speak Mandarin, there are virtually none who don't speak Tibetan. Then there's the boarding school narrative. Some Western outlets claimed China was forcibly assimilating Tibetan children. But in a region of high altitude and widely scattered communities, the alternative would often mean long, dangerous daily commutes and far fewer opportunities to access qualified teachers. In fact, many Tibetan parents themselves requested the establishment of boarding schools out of concern for their children's safety and the quality of their education. Ironically, the same Western nations making these accusations have a long history of cultural genocide through boarding school systems. Most notably, like in the United States and Canada, where indigenous children were abused and subjected to the systematic erosion of their cultural identities. Another common claim is that China's policies are impoverishing Tibetans. But Xizang's GDP has soared from just 129 million yuan, roughly $16 million in 1951, to over 270 billion yuan, or nearly $38 billion in 2024, an increase of over 2,000 times. And the lives of ordinary people have undergone a dramatic transformation. The ethnic Tibetan population in Xizang has grown from around 1 million in 1951 to 3.13 million in 2023. Life expectancy has risen from 35.5 years to 72.5 years. People who once lived under serfdom, marked by exploitation, lack of personal freedom, and no access to basic services, now benefit from significantly improved living conditions, including access to electricity, modern transportation, healthcare, and education. Indeed, those so-called expressions of concern are nothing more than baseless accusations. And now, the original questions start to make sense. The so-called Tibet issue was never about religion or human rights. It's always been a geopolitical tool used by certain Western powers to interfere in China's internal affairs and to contain its rise. Let's ask the obvious questions. Did the West help Tibetan serfs gain freedom from slavery? No. Did the West lift the Tibetan people out of poverty? No. Was Tibetan development driven by Western investment? Absolutely not. Tibet or Xizang's transformation came from within, through decades of national efforts, targeted policies, and the work of all ethnic groups, including the Tibetans who live under the same sky. Green mountains, blue skies, monks chanting, kids playing in the streets, and even friendly locals offering you a cup of chan, a traditional Tibetan alcoholic beverage. Is this real Tibet? That's the reaction many left under viral Xizang travel vlogs on YouTube. As more travelers began sharing their footage online, the comment section quickly filled with messages like, "Thank you for showing the real Tibet," and "they've kept us in the dark all this time." With the rise of social media and China's new visa-free policies, more ordinary foreigners are now visiting Xizang and documenting what they see with their own eyes. And what they are showing the world tells a very different story from the one long promoted in the West. They also won't tell you about Yongqing Lanmu, Xizang's first Winter Olympia, or Xizang Baijian, the first female Tibetan fighter pilot in China's People's Liberation Army. Back in old Tibet, where theocracy and serfdom prevailed, a future like this would have been unthinkable. So what exactly is the Tibet issue? It's not complex, it's not cultural, and it's certainly not humanitarian. It's a political instrument. Xizang becomes an issue only when the West wants it to be. A century ago, Britain and later the United States created the so-called Tibet issue to divide and weaken China. Today, the goal remains unchanged: to ignore the real Xizang and instead fabricate a fictional Western Tibet, one designed to mislead the world and undermine China's sovereignty, security, and development. Tibetans are not pawns in a Western strategic agenda. They are citizens of a transforming China, integral to its civilization, and deserve to be heard on their own terms.